Yeah, hello everybody. Greetings from National Skills Network, Hyderabad. I'm sure some of you have been watching the expert talks that we have been conducting for the last few weeks on various topics. And these talks are also intended to have few action points which can help our viewers to act upon some of the ideas that they have had in many areas connected with skill development, upskilling, reskilling, higher education, training. And today we have a very special guest, and the focus area is quite different. We are looking at HR and we are looking at corporate university learning, corporate learning, and many other aspects that are connected with it. We have with us Ms. Sampada Inamdar, who is the Dean Corporate University at ANAND Group and also the Vice President. And she's had considerable experience in various areas, and her expertise is in corporate learning, corporate training, and development. So let's have this chat with her around skilling, upskilling, and reskilling, especially from the point of view of corporate university. So welcome to this Skill Talk, Ms. Sampada.
Thank you. Thank you, Madhuri. It's a pleasure to be here on this forum.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So let's get started by asking Sampada a very topical question, which is to do with digital transformation, which is happening across the industry. And in such an age, how do we enhance productivity and efficiency through skilling, upskilling? Let's learn from her about training interventions at Anand Group and interventions you can tell us about shop floor level, mid management, and leadership. So let's get started by asking you this important question.
Yeah, thank you, Madhuri. I think digital transformation is a much talked about word. I wouldn't be surprised if you Google and you look up what are the most frequently used words besides quarantine and pandemic, there would be digital transformation, skilling, reskilling, upskilling. Yeah. And that's bound to be there. It's natural that it happens. What does digital transformation mean for us, from a skilling standpoint? Of course, the platforms used for transfer of knowledge have become digital. That's where various virtual classrooms, e-learnings, and other forms of digital learning come at play. However, when it comes to skilling, application of these competencies still remain physical.
Mm.
We still need to find ways in which application on shop floor processes happens, right?
Yeah.
So there are workarounds to the skilling piece in form of simulations, virtual reality, augmented reality, and other controlled technologies to appreciate this application of competencies. But somehow these workarounds, at least in the Indian markets, are yet to mature, if you're looking at balancing the cost and the scale of application. If you look at Anand Group, we are spread across 53 plus locations having manufacturing units. If we were to have a virtual reality, augmented reality, simulations, all of this happening across all our plants, that would really not be a good balance as far as cost and quality is concerned. So, of course, this is still a long way to go. Things are still maturing,
Yeah.
but definitely the pandemic has given a good segue and a good, I think, speed to this transformation. Now, digital transformation in the auto industry is happening at a pace with, changing government norms. There's the scrap policy coming in. All those norms and government regulations, which were planned to be spread across last 20 years, are now getting expedited, and in the next 3 years all these norms and regulations are coming in, which is a huge change, right? And with industry 4.0, of course, so productivity and efficiency ramp up is inevitable. I don't think any organization today will have the luxury of going by their own pace.
Right.
So step-by-step approach to automation, to artificial intelligence-based projects, spurring innovation is going to be the way forward. And I think, at least in Anand, the foundation work for all this has been fortunately laid pre-pandemic times itself. So fortunately for us, the foundation was there, but now we need to ramp up. So the emergence of these new capabilities for subject matter experts, if you're talking about what kind of skilling, because you're talking about productivity, efficiency, and we're also talking about effectiveness, because we're looking at the entire value chain, right from customers to Anand Group to our suppliers. We have to carry them all along. So these new capabilities for subject matter expertise in the areas of automation, in the areas of analytics, robotics, processes, mechatronics, cybersecurity, all these has sort of led to a sense of urgency for execution in this digital transformation. So therefore, our skilling interventions at Anand have been driven across all levels of hierarchy, at the shop floor level, at the staff levels, at the middle management, as well as senior management levels. So everybody actually goes through skilling, upskilling, reskilling at our place. And so across all these areas, so problem solving, automation, traceability, Industry 4.0 norms, government regulations. So there's a huge amount of awareness, education, skilling that is happening at different levels. So I think that is where we stand as far as digital transformation in Anand is concerned.
Yeah.
But I would just, as a last point, I would like to mention that effective upskilling definitely requires a balance of technical and soft skills for the organization, right? So that balance definitely has to be maintained.
Yeah, I think that's a
Hope
very
that helps.
important point. Yeah, that's a very important point, because even today, the mainstream talk about skilling is mostly the technical aspects, and people tend to forget the softer side, or what we call as people skills, or workplace skills, and 21st century skills, known by so many names. I think that's equally important. Good that you mentioned it. Connected with this is another point, that since it's a corporate university, and there could be many initiatives that you are undertaking, how do you ensure a continuous learning and convey this message to the employees at Anand Group across various verticals? So are there any particular initiatives that you would like to mention in this conversation?
Yeah, so I think as continuous learning initiatives, we have linked everything to the roles.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm playing a role of, say, a plant quality head,
Yeah.
there are certain functional and technical skilling aspects to my role, and there are certain leadership and behavioral skilling aspects to my role. I move from one role to another role. Obviously, my ask of competencies and skilling is going to change, right? So this therefore becomes a continuous upgrade, and this sort of creates a pull in the organization, because if I want to grow, it's my onus and my responsibility that I skill myself, right? So it's basically from the employee side that this continuous learning and skilling definitely happens. From an organization driven standpoint, there are certain learning platforms which are made available to people. So we don't just have internal e-learning as a readily available tool to everybody, but we encourage people to move out, provide them with other digital platforms for learning, for social interactions, and so on. This definitely is there. As a corporate organization, from the group level itself, there's a drive to make sure that problem solving skills are honed, right? That's going to be important for us for today. But for tomorrow, looking at analytics, looking at project management, looking at kaizens, looking at big data and data analytics is something which is driven all across. This whole culture of looking at innovation or design thinking from a solution focused approach and from a breakthrough approach is something that happens as a continuous thing. So all the continuous learning is a mix of what the employee is driving. He's excited to drive because there's something in it for him,
Yeah.
and from the organization standpoint also. So this happens on a regular basis. Yeah, and from a various vertical standpoint, I think there's a huge amount of blended learning that we focus on, because it's sort of uh, like you say, the ease of doing business has to go up. The ease of learning also has to go up,
Right.
especially in pandemic times when people have been working from home. The people have been facing personal challenges, family challenges, team challenges. They've been losing people, losing relationships, all of that. Whatever we are talking about, skilling and learning has to be something which is made easy and palatable to people, right? So that aspect of user experience, of employee experience in learning has to be brought in. Only then continuous learning and that culture can be further enhanced.
Yeah, thank you so much for elaborating it so very well. One point I think which everybody would like to know more is when we talk about continuous learning and informal learning, among employees, which is also an important part of it. Is there any incentivization or recognition for such learning that happens, occasionally in your organization?
So I think in our organization, we haven't really believed too much in incentivization. We're still exploring whether that's a good idea to do that. So we probably initiated some policies there. But in terms of recognition and creating that pull, definitely. So
Okay.
there are various fora wherein we're celebrating learning, right? So most of the skilling and the learning are long duration interventions that we hold at Anand Group, and
Mhm.
it's not easy to qualify these, right? So there are quite a few people who don't qualify these long duration interventions. So those who qualify, it's like a Rajabhishek done for them.
Mhm.
So they are recognized in public fora, given enough visibility such that it creates that pull for the other person, that yes, I also want to fall
Right.
in that category. So
Yeah.
one is that. Second is most there is a special attempt made at linking this to growth policies.
Mhm.
So you learn, you grow.
Yeah.
You don't learn, I don't know whether you will not grow, but when you learn, you definitely grow, right? So there's a kind of a tracking mechanism put in place for your behavioral, your leadership skills, your technical or functional skills, and then this sort of aids or feeds into or gives a segue into employee growth. So that's the kind of recognition and growth policies that we have linked it to.
Yeah. Yeah, so and coming to another important point, this conversation actually that I'm having with you is thanks to NTTF. I would like to acknowledge the connect that they made between us. So I'd like to know more about your collaboration with NTTF, particularly in the backdrop of automotive industry, the kind of training NTTF gives. How does this collaboration work between Anand Group and NTTF, and how has it benefited you, internally?
Yes, we've had a long-standing association with NTTF,
Mhm.
and I don't know if you know about Anand Group per se. Anand Group is known for its joint venture partnerships, right? So as a conglomerate, we have multiple joint ventures. So
Mhm.
partnerships and establishing and honing and nurturing these relationships comes as part of our DNA. NTTF, our association goes way long, but I think what one of the key factors for why this association has been a long-standing association is this entire approach that NTTF has
Mhm.
towards curating skilling interventions, right?
Yeah,
Making it customized and yet being relevant to the industry.
yeah.
So if you look at our customized or curated interventions, which we've launched with NTTF probably 15 years ago,
Mhm.
that curated intervention looks very different from what it looks today. Yeah. So that has been a factor because NTTF has this ability of being relevant to the times, being relevant to the industry. So they bring in newer technologies, they bring in automation, they bring in these low cost automation, inputs on their workshop, on their shop floors. So this works because we both believe in do and demonstrate. We both believe that if you're not able to demonstrate and apply, skilling has not happened. So I
Yeah.
think that has been an underlying feature for us. And that's probably the reason why we go a long way.
That's so nice to hear, particularly the emphasis on the practical aspect of it, I think, which is the core of any technical training and skill development. Now, with regard to the corporate university at Anand Group, the concept of corporate university in India hasn't yet caught up, and we don't have so many of them. So, from your experience, how do you think the corporate university is addressing the industry requirements, and also at the same time creating, or rather empowering people with skills that are needed, as we call, for the future of work? So, can you tell us a little more about the corporate university?
Sure. So Anand Group actually has been a visionary or probably a pioneer in the industry for setting up a corporate university way back in 1991. I
Mhm.
don't think there were too many. I do remember the TMTC was set up in 1959, I think, probably the first corporate university for India. So I think it's the visionary approach of our founding founder, Mr. DC Anand, who way back then actually envisaged that there would be something which would be required for skilling to reach masses, yet to differentiate between talent and groom people on skilling front. So it goes way back, and our current chairperson, Mrs. Anjali Singh, has not just driven that the noble cause as an intent, but adding a lot of value to future technologies, to being relevant for the industry, and huge connect and contribution to the value chain. So that is something which Anand U as a corporate university drives. As you know, we're a corporate, we're a conglomerate. So therefore, Anand U works as not just a nutrient provider to employees, but works as a unifying corporate entity, tying all our group companies, all our JV partnership companies into the Anand umbrella. So therefore, the focus that Anand U drives is not just in terms of being a culture enabler, right? Driving the Anand way and driving the Anand culture, but also being there as a huge enabler for competence building, as a huge enabler for driving digital transformation, as a huge enabler for looking at future readiness of our talent,
Mhm.
um, of a skilled staff, and so on. So I think that's where the entire focus has been, and therefore, from the industry standpoint, our focus in the areas of innovation, our focus in the areas of automation, Industry 4.0, on all these recall and government norms and changes that are happening. So that becomes our key focus, to be future ready. That's the path that Anand U is treading as a corporate university.
Okay, that's so nice to hear. And since this, the HR professionals who, I mean, play a very important role in training, skilling, etc. In the current times and the changing times and the future that's going to, throw more challenges, what would be your advice to say, let's say, young HR professionals who should be understanding the importance of skilling and making it integral to their processes for recruitment or for retention, for many other aspects of HR processes?
That's an interesting word. Particularly striking for me is integral.
Mm,
Is an important word because the focus actually now has to move away from just only training to skilling and habit change, right? Focus on these two areas, not just for your employees as HR professionals, but as HR professionals, you also need to be, relevant, to remain relevant to the current competencies, be it Industry 4.0, automation, artificial intelligence, anything, right?
mm,
Because with the current times, the HR processes or the mechanisms are going to get automated, right?
yeah.
So, what becomes more and more important is for HR professionals, the soft power
Mhm.
and the human touch of human resources needs to get amplified. And HR can further hone their skills around coaching. Yeah. So, all these things actually would be of immense value from an HR person, professional point of view. But above all, I think this pandemic has been testing times for HR. And I can definitely say that in Anand, HR has, at the group level, has done a stellar job delivering on the individual and family well-being, despite all those pandemic challenges, right, since 2020. So with the new normal and multiple waves coming in, wave 1, 2, and now they're talking about third wave, I think HR also needs to take care of themselves first,
Yeah.
right? Because they've been the big soldier, the front runner in dealing with people's well-being, but now they need to take care of themselves first. And which means that find ways and mechanisms to hone your own emotional resilience as HR. If it means get a coach or a mentor, do it, but do it for yourself.
Yeah.
And be there, of course, for your employees. So I think going forward, it's going to be a test of everybody's emotional resilience.
Yeah.
HR is a front runner on that.
Yes, that's very true. They have been the front ending people, and as you said, they had to take care of many more responsibilities because of pandemic, not just their typical role. And I think everybody rose to the occasion in
Yeah.
various organizations when the challenge came up. So besides these points, Ms. Sampada, is there something else you would like to share with us?
No, I don't think you've actually looked at everything very holistically. You've looked at digital, you've looked at skilling, you've looked at the softer side as well as the NTTF Connect. I think very well captured. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Sampada, and thank you, NTTF, for connecting us. Thanks a lot. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Goodbye.